Cryptocurrency has a history of catching massive traction every 4 years, specifically the year after the Bitcoin halving. That Bitcoin halving was last year, and 2025 should be that year where the world starts paying real close attention to crypto. And that is still coming despite this recent pain that you may be feeling. Now, one of the areas, or what I call a narrative within crypto, where I think one of the biggest focuses will be, is decentralized finance. One of the projects that I've been following since 2018 that I think has some very strong innovations within decentralized finance is Wanchain. And today we're joined by Wanchain's CEO, Temujin Lui, who I invited to discuss a massive new upgrade to their network, which is already simplifying how easy it is to move your crypto from one chain to another. Now, I've always thought like crypto really hits massive transaction when somebody who knows very little about crypto can come in and it's just so easy to use. And that has not been the case in crypto. And if you're new to crypto, you realize it's so complex still. But this massive breakthrough just takes it another step towards simplicity, the kind of simplicity that, say, grandma or grandpa need to come in and use crypto. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. If you, like me, came into crypto because you realize there's potential here for life-changing gains over a greater 4 to 8 year period, and you're looking for those discussions on becoming a solid, unshakable, savage crypto investor, well, you're in exactly the right place and with the right family, the Rainmaker family. Now, the reason I created this channel is because I was once new to the crypto space myself 8 years ago, and back then I was looking for a crypto channel on YouTube and a network or group that understood crypto as an investment and discussed the most important things like the 4-year investment cycle. And then within that, specific projects and the pros and cons of those projects. I wanted somebody who talked about undervalued gems and brought to me the information like, why is this undervalued? What is the story behind this? What is the technology behind this that makes this so big and yet a lot of people are just unaware of it yet? So these are the gems that have higher than normal potential for massive gains. And those are the kind of discussions I was really looking for. And I didn't find that. So we created that. And I say we because it's not just me anymore. It's a family of rainmakers. And you see them here in the chat. You'll see some in our free Telegram group. And there's a link to that below. And you will definitely find them in our private Patreon group. Allows you access to the Rainmaker private Discord. And this is where the best discussion and best info is. Now, do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I am a crypto investor myself. Now, big shout out to our two strategic partners, Wanchain and DEFI, and both are here. You see them on the bottom. And Wanchain is joining us today with their CEO. So make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show. And help me welcome Tim, CEO of Wanchain, to the channel. Tim, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me back. Always great to be on the channel.
Yeah, I saw you were invited to a big crypto conference in Istanbul in Turkey coming up this summer.
Yeah, it's going to be, it's been a few months now, a lot of traveling. So it looks like that's going to keep going. We'll be in Turkey. I'll also be at Consensus in Toronto this year. We always go to Token 2049 in Singapore. So, we've gone around. I was just in New York for this kind of JP Morgan event. So yeah, always moving around.
Now, Altcoin Buzz just did a video, and they are one of the biggest channels in YouTube. They did a video on a major upgrade to your decentralized bridge with Wanchain XFlows. For those joining the channel that either are unfamiliar with Wanchain or unfamiliar with this big new XFlows update, tell us more about Wanchain's XFlows.
Sure. Well, before we had the Wanchain bridge, we've had it, you've been following us since 2018, you said, so you're well acquainted with us. But for the viewers who might not be as familiar, Wanchain, we're blockchain interoperability, basically connecting different blockchains and making sure they can pass data from one to the other. Before, you had this cross-chain bridge, the Wanchain bridge. This basically just moves one asset to another. So you have USDT on BNB chain and you want USDT on Avalanche. You go to bridge.wanchain.org and it gets that done for you. Now we've just launched XFlows as a standalone product. XFlows differs slightly. It's built on the same kind of secure and proven cross-chain infrastructure that Wanchain has built over the past few years, but now it enables cross-chain swaps. So instead of USDT on one chain to USDT on another chain, you can transform those assets. You can go USDT to ETH, USDT to Sol. You can go USDC to, eventually BTC. So these types of cross-chain swaps, this is what, XFlows is all about, and maintaining that kind of native to native canonical component that really we've been focusing on the last few years, meaning that you're always getting the native official version of each asset on each chain. You don't have to worry about ending up with some wrapped asset that you can't really use in the ecosystem.
So say I know some OGs out there, but they don't hold Bitcoin. They hold wrapped Bitcoin on ETH, and say it's time for them, they feel it's time to cash it out. They could literally sell it on the ETH chain to, say, USDC or USDT on Polygon, because just then much cheaper to transfer that around to different places. So they'd be able to swap directly from wrapped Bitcoin to, say, USDC on a totally different chain.
Exactly. Yeah. You have WBTC, very popular wrap version of Bitcoin. It's on Ethereum, which means it's kind of expensive to transact on Ethereum. Maybe, you preempted some of the news recently before the Bitcoin crash. Well, not crash, but, from 100K to 80K. And maybe you're thinking, maybe I want to get out of WBTC, go to a stable on another chain, or even like a totally different asset. Let's say you think, for whatever reason, you think maybe just AVAX, is going to do better following whatever news. So in one click, you can go from this WBTC to a stable coin on another chain, or you can just go to a totally different asset. It's not limited only to stable coins.
One of my friends is big into trading meme coins. And so he's been holding Solana, but he said a lot of the meme coin movement is going to AVAX. And he's literally selling some Solana going to AVAX. And you'd be able to do that right on Wanchain's XFlows.
Yeah, that's right. And when you're actually jumping around these chains, especially people who are kind of like chasing memes and things like that, maybe they're not as used to operating on a lot of different chains. They don't know what their go-to bridge is, for example. So it's actually quite annoying to try to figure out how to go from Sol to AVAX, for example. So with the new XFlows, that's right. You can just do it in one click. You just select Sol. You say, I want to go to AVAX. Press one button, sign it in your MetaMask, and then it's done.
That is such a major upgrade. Having been in crypto for so long, I remember how, like, even the evolution of like bridges and having to send USDT on one chain to another on USDT, and then finding a swap on that chain to be able to swap to, and now having all that in one place. It is a massive breakthrough. For those of us that have been in the crypto space for a long time, we know how big that is and how simple that is, because I think of this day when grandma and grandpa can use things without understanding what's going on behind the scenes. And they're like, well, I have this here and I just want to go to here. What's the big deal? And I see that all coming together.
Yeah, it's great for people who, like you said, are maybe new to crypto, grandma, but even people like us who have been around for a long time. Yes, I technically know the steps I need to take if I want to kind of move these assets from one chain to a different chain. But, before something like XFlows, it's like 4 or 5 transactions, so just kind of simplifying that into a single click, even for kind of veterans or, damaged goods or whatever you want to call people who have been in crypto for so long. Even us, there's a big benefit to just being able to sign one transaction.
Just call us damaged goods.
I might have just done that.
So essentially, if someone has assets on Trust Wallet or MetaMask or a number of different wallets, they can essentially connect these up to Wanchain's XFlows and just move them between the different chains.
That's right. Yeah. And you can swap between the different chains, more than just moving. But yeah, you just use your regular EVM wallet. While there's like a lot of different options, let's just call them MetaMask or Rabby, these really popular ones, they all work with the Wanchain bridge. Just sign one transaction and you're done.
One of my good friends who also has a YouTube channel that I love, he says, Temujin, original name of Genghis Khan.
Yep, that's 100% correct.
I did not know that. All right. Now, if you're moving this stuff, like one of the big problems we have to think about in the crypto space is gas. So does it take the Wanchain token to be able to bridge between all these different networks?
No, so the user doesn't have to hold the WAN coin at all. But, part of this is really just simplifying the experience for the end user. So that's why when we were designing it, we really wanted that, if I am just going from USDT on BNB chain to Sol and Solana, I don't want to have to go and try to interact with like a third chain myself. I just want to sign one transaction on the chain that I'm already using, and then I want the experience to be done. I just want to receive my assets. So that's how it works from the user's perspective. You don't need to hold any Wanchain. In the background, though, it does make use of the Wanchain. So XFlows does leverage the Wanchain as kind of a liquidity layer. Even in the background, there's might be, you can't get around the fact that there's going to be multiple transactions behind the scenes to do something like this in a decentralized way. What XFlows does is it only surfaces one transaction to the user, but behind the scenes there's a few things going on. This uses the Wanchain in a lot of cases, so it is another use case for the Wanchain. But from a user's perspective, no, it's as simple as can be. You just use the chain you want to use, sign one transaction, and you're done.
Chris, one of my longtime Rainmaker family, says XSwap is so awesome. So is the good old bridge. Great work.
Yeah, I'll just, we're not supposed to correct people on air, but I'll just say it's called XFlows. But it is a swap, yes. And but thank you very much for the kind words. We're very happy with how it's turned out. I know our core community have been really positive about it, and so A, that's a good thing, and B, it kind of encourages us, to really continue to push forward. And obviously, there's going to be upgrades to this protocol as well, similar to how we've supported WAM Bridge for all these years. We'll be giving equal support to XFlows to make sure that it stays state of the art.
Now, one of the big challenges, a lot of my community is in the US, and they've had a hard time because although Wanchain is on Binance and some of the bigger exchanges on there, a lot of them don't have access for US investors. They haven't been able to buy it. But now, is it possible for them to use actually your chain like XFlows to go ahead and buy WAN directly if they want to?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely, of course, we would never launch a product that doesn't support the Wanchain L1. So you can definitely just do it that way. Just connect your wallet, your MetaMask to any whatever chain you're using. You go to xflows.wanchain.org, the new XFlows protocol, and yeah, you can go from ETH, you can go from USDT, you can go from whatever asset you want straight to WAN, one click, and you're done. And there's no geo-locking going involved here. It's a totally permissionless, decentralized system. So if you're solely focused on can people in the US access this protocol, yeah, it does definitely solve that problem.
Yeah, great question. All right. Now, I'm curious, this is personal curiosity. What are you seeing as far as usage of Wanchain's XFlows? I'm curious what chains are being bridged from with the highest amount of asset flows now that it's live and people are starting to use it.
Yeah, so I don't think it's exclusive to XFlows. I think we have noticed similar trends just always as a interoperability protocol where we see transactions go from chain to chain. Right now, for XFlows, the most popular route remains between BNB chain and Solana. I think there's a few reasons for this. One, they're both pretty cheap and fast and very popular chains. Let's say if we had this conversation 2 weeks ago, we would say that there's maybe like a vibrant meme coin market on Solana, and there's a lot of trust in BNB chain just because of its connections to Binance. It's a great ramp to get onto centralized exchanges, which is important for the mainstream users. So yeah, this kind of remains the most popular route. And in terms of assets, definitely the stable coins. It's always always the most popular when we're looking at bridging protocols. Besides that, ETH and the different types of BTCs, whether it's Bitcoin or BTC on Bitcoin or WBTC on ETH or BTCB on Binance chain. So these kind of four assets tend to be the most popular ones that are going through these types of bridges. And that is kind of why we lean so heavily in these four assets in the design of our XFlows products itself. So, chicken and the egg, are we only getting most of our transactions to those assets because we're prioritizing them, or is it we believe it's because that's just the industry, like 90% plus of all blockchain transactions are touching these four assets.
But what's funny for a lot of the users out there, a lot of my audience came in 2021. A few of them have been in crypto before, but they like a little historical background. I remember back in 2018, smart contracts on ETH back then were a new thing. Like ETH was launched, I think 2014, 2015. And like you know, a lot of Bitcoiners like, oh, that's crazy. It's, you know, whatever, like, you know, it'll never be as good. And then this idea of smart contracts came out. And back in 2018, smart contracts were starting to become a thing. Like you could actually use them, and all these other chains were launching. And I remember Wanchain launching at that time, talking about bridging all of these other networks. And at that time, I couldn't conceptualize what that would look like, only that it would be important that these chains could talk to each other. So fast forward all these years, and it's really fun for me to see the rollout of like what Wanchain has been working on so long taking shape. And especially when XFlows came out, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so breakthrough, because the simplification of all these chains being able to communicate and you being able to send assets across, like I guess for me, it was a realization of what the promise was in 2018, seeing it actual in implementation, especially when I did my first transaction across it. I bridged USDT to USDC on different networks. And I was like, this was so simple. One click. I know there's a bunch of things that happen in the background, and, you know, like not very long later, it's showing up in my wallet. I was like, that was so easy. And that was so amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that sometimes it doesn't feel that way from the outside, but there's been great progress made in interoperability when you're going back to like the first version of the bridge that we built, which was, you know, the first bridge, or the first decentralized bridge basically ever in the industry. You know, you had to kind of manually go claim your asset on the other chain. You had to use all these kind of long hashes and kind of go prove that you are who you are. And, you know, it's just totally not
scary back in those days.
Yeah. And then we got to the point where the bridging itself is relatively seamless. You could at least hide, you know, the one of the transactions, make it a one-click process, let the assets unlock automatically, still be very secure. So we made a lot of progress on that front. And now, like you said, we have the swapping component of it. And definitely it's easier for users to kind of, as you said, see what the vision of interoperability is when you can actually touch something and use it and see the benefits and see kind of the advantages that it gives you. That being said, you know, we still think that there's a lot of room to go. We're still at the point now where it's like, yes, it's very seamless, so easy, one click, USDT to USDC on a different chain, like you said. But just kind of conceptually, what you're still thinking about two chains. Right now, it's kind of cool. There's actually more than two chains involved in a lot of these transactions, and you're only feeling two of them: the one you started on and the one you want to end up on. Ultimately, where we want interoperability to go is that you don't have to think about the chains at all. You'll just have USDC. It doesn't matter what chain it's actually on. It doesn't matter what you know, chain your wallet is connecting to. You just want to go, I want to do USDT to USDC, for example. Boom, one click, I now have USDC. You don't have to think about, I now have USDC on XXXXXX. Ultimately, that doesn't really matter. We want all of these different blockchains to be able to just operate as one mega chain. And for that, that's why you need these chains to be able to speak to one another, to be able to pass data from one another. And this is really what interoperability is, and what Wanchain's vision is, and what we've been building for, you know, all these years. Like I said, amazing progress so far. And what's kind of encouraging for us too is, you know, the next steps to get there, they're very clear. So we have a lot of work to do, but it's very exciting because there's no doubt really anymore that it can be done. We've made enough progress that the end goal or the next milestone is always in sight. So we always have something to aim for.
Yeah, I've been keeping track of you guys built a bridge to Cardano not too long ago, and being able to bridge assets back and forth between there. And Cardano is really, I guess, stepped up its game with some major new improvements. And also, I think it's getting a lot more usage. What are some of the other major chains that Wanchain now allows you to bridge between? Because that was a complex problem to solve. Bringing things, it's not really EVM compatible like a lot of the other chains. So bringing things to and from Cardano, you now can bridge to XRP. What are some of the other major chains out there that you can bridge between?
Yeah, I mean, your point about Cardano is very true. Amazing tech, but obviously not EVM at all. It's a totally different structure. It uses UTXOs, which is more like how Bitcoin works. And so when you're talking interoperability, that's way, way more complex, orders of magnitude more complex than just doing an EVM to an EVM, because those chains, they already sort of speak the same language. no translation has to be done. So yeah, Cardano is a big deal for us. Our bridge is doing very well there, but we support lots of other non-EVMs. We support Bitcoin natively. Solana also is a non-EVM. XRP Ledger, like you said, we do Dogecoin, Litecoin, these types of things. And then we also support all of the kind of major EVMs that you would expect, the Ethereum, basically all of the L2s, things like Avalanche. So in all, we support more than 40 chains right now. And probably we'll get to it, but we have like a relatively new product called XPort. And so this has allowed us to integrate a lot of, let's say, smaller chains, which previously was difficult for us to support just directly into the Wanchain bridge. But the vision has always been, interoperability for all chains, not only popular chains. So this is another kind of tool in our tool belt that allows us to connect more and more chains.
Yeah, I can see your vision coming together where at the end of the day, people only think about holding the asset. Okay, do I want to hold USDC? Do I want to hold Solana? Do I want to hold this? And they don't have to worry about what it's on. Even Bitcoin. You can be like, oh, I own Bitcoin on my MetaMask or my Trust Wallet, but they don't have to think about what it's on. And Wanchain could abstract everything behind them. So they don't have to think about it. It's just easy.
Yeah, and even if you think about it from like a business's perspective, get like outside of just users like you and I who are dealing with crypto. If we want to get to the point where the quote unquote the world runs on blockchain, there's all sorts of business logic and stuff like that has to be executed on chain. Perhaps the assets are already on chain A, but some key data is on chain B. So you need an ability to get that data from chain B to chain A to trigger kind of some events downstream to tell whatever smart contract is on chain A what to do with these assets that are already there. So interoperability for the end user, like the end consumers like us, we think about it as crypto, like you said. It's tangible. It's easy to understand that this is worth $1 and this is a Bitcoin. But when you're kind of expanding outward to the whole world running on it, it's way more than just assets. It's really data flowing, basically the internet, but on blockchain.
Makes sense. So I was reading recently that you had launched a direct bridge for both PYUSD and XRP to Cardano. Now, could you explain more about that?
Sure. PYUSD, this is PayPal's new stablecoin, newish stablecoin, just a few months ago. And so this was, I think, originally just minted by them on Ethereum and Solana. So this is kind of part of our ongoing efforts to really make sure that non-EVMs remain part of the equation. So Cardano is an excellent use case for that. It's a huge chain, really passionate community, tons of users, vibrant DeFi ecosystem. But because of their technical structure, they end up sort of isolated from a lot of these things that are going on in other chains. And so it's a great place for Wanchain to kind of spread its wings, to bring in these other assets that might have some real world interest, might have some enterprise or institutional interest, something like a stablecoin that's backed by PayPal, and bring that into Cardano so it can be used there by the various users, DeFi protocols, and any businesses that are building their business on Cardano. So that's basically what's up with both PYUSD and the other assets that we bring to Cardano. Now we have a pretty good schedule of assets that get brought to Cardano. I think probably every few weeks we bring something new. We've brought XRP there as well recently. So it's really kind of a good use case to demonstrate the power of non-EVM interoperability as well.
Another question. So help me understand this, because there was a big announcement recently that Wanchain is using Linea, which is a layer 2 scaling solution for ETH. But I didn't quite understand what does that announcement mean relative. Mm-hmm. And I know that's probably a fairly technical question, but I think a lot of the audience is technical as well, that they would understand, not only understand the answer, but be interested in what the answer is.
Sure. Actually, this one is one that's actually relatively simple to not get too technical. So like you said, Linea, it's a layer 2 for Ethereum, similar to an Arbitrum or an Optimism, which a lot of people have heard of. And so as a layer 2, they have very, let's say, secure versions of Ethereum assets, specifically ETH, meaning that there's like a canonical official version of ETH on Linea and all of these L2s that we treat as equivalent to ETH on Ethereum. So when we integrate a new chain like Linea, it has this valuable asset, ETH on Linea. Now it's integrated into the Wanchain bridge and XFlows, meaning you as a user can go from ETH on Linea to any other asset basically on the chains that we support. So you can now do one-click swaps from that ETH on Linea to ETH on other chains, to USDT on other chains, to USDC on other chains, to BNB on BNB chain. Basically, it becomes part of our total infrastructure and gives users who are using things like XFlows more assets that they have access to.
Okay. And so when you use that, is it sometimes easier for Wanchain or just less expensive to then use Linea's ETH rather than ETH itself? Is that what the announcement is, or is it just an integration of Linea's capabilities because they have, like, I guess, an actual version of ETH on it?
Yeah, it's more so just the expansion of our network. So our network has now expanded to include Linea. If you only use, Linea's in-house solutions, like a lot of the L2s, there's some downsides. They're all relatively secure, I would say even very secure. But for example, if you want to go from, the most simple example is you want to go from the ETH on Linea to ETH on Ethereum using the official Linea mechanism, it takes a week. This is similar to all L2s.
Okay.
So at a very simple level, if you use XFlows, it'll take you 3 minutes or something like that. And then in addition to that, it gives you the additional ability to swap directly to another asset. So it's really kind of, just a benefit to end users.
I'm starting to get it now. Because you integrate with them now, essentially they can use your bridge to get that same conversion, but they can get it done almost instantaneously rather than waiting a week.
Yeah. And if you use the official Linea bridge, you only have the option to do ETH to ETH. There's no cross-chain swap. It's just kind of like a redeem. A redemption. You can think about it that way. So you get, let's say, quicker, cheaper redemption using Wanchain solutions, and also all this other stuff, such as the cross-chain swaps you can go Linea ETH to Sol, for example.
Now, for those that are been around the crypto space for a little while, you might realize the significance of this, but Wanchain's actually been running not only all these swaps, but even their own chain, their own network. And if you followed Solana for a while, you've probably seen Solana and a few other chains sometimes failed and they had to be reset. Anyway, Wanchain's had their own chain around for a while now. How long has Wanchain's chain actually been running?
Yeah, so Wanchain's been around forever. Like you said, you've been following us for 2018. Our chain, our layer 1 chain, EVM compatible. We just recently passed 7 years of uninterrupted uptime. So that was a big milestone for us. We're all very happy about that. At Wanchain, we have all this interoperability stuff, but really I would say it's always security first. It's been, to the frustration of a lot of our community over the years, but we're really not willing to sacrifice security or stability for anything, even growth hacks or anything like that. So passing 7 years with no downtime has really been kind of an important milestone for us. And it's only, the Wanchain layer 1 is only becoming more and more important to our tech stack, especially as we launch new products such as XFlows. Like I said, from the user's perspective, it's one click from one chain to another, but there's stuff going on in the background. And a lot of that stuff is happening on the Wanchain L1 blockchain. Yeah,
for the long term, I would always prefer to see it set up correctly. And one of the things I've liked about Wanchain over the years is your scientists and your engineers are like some of the best in the world. We had the opportunity to have Dr. Ouija on, it was almost 2 years ago. And he's one of the leading minds in where things are going. In fact, he speaks at a lot of the major conferences where these decisions are made as far as interoperability. And so I like that you've taken the time, that it is security first. I've never had a problem with anything on Wanchain's network. Nothing's ever gone missing. In fact, I haven't even heard any of my Rainmaker family have any problems with Wanchain's network. So I guess we appreciate the security, though sometimes it's the investor side of us is like, when price go up, right? But I would rather see it secure and not end up having major problems than because I'm more of a long-term investor myself.
Now, when from an investor point of view, speed is very, very important. And there's obviously stuff we could do to the bridge that would make it faster, but there's always a cost, whether it's hidden, whether it's financial, or whether it's security. And so, with Wanchain, we're always going to err on the side of security.
Yeah, and long-term investor, I prefer that. Recently, you launched XPort. Now, talk to me about what XPort is. It's your cross-chain data transfer protocol, but what is this technology?
Yeah, so this is a very important part of our ever-growing tech stack now. There's actually quite a few pieces to the Wanchain puzzle now. We have the Wanchain bridge to move assets from one chain to another. We have XPort, which is cross-chain swapping. We have XStake, which I think we spoke about on one of our previous calls, and this is really our staking platform. And we also have XPort, so this is data transfer. So what this really kind of differentiates, or what the differentiating factor is that something like Wanchain bridge, it's focused on assets. It's moving USDT from one chain to a different chain. XPort relies on a lot of the same security, but moves data from one chain to another. And how this kind of fits into place is that when you're just moving an asset, once you enter the bridge, the transaction kind of becomes dumb, meaning that there's nothing else going out. You come out of the bridge and it's over. When you can pass data, you can do things like passing business logic, like I talked about, just a few minutes ago, or just if you want to put it in a different way, you can pass the instructions from one chain to a different chain, so that when a smart contract on the destination chain receives this data, it can actually decode what the instructions are, and it tells the smart contract what to do next. And so with this, you can do kind of more complex or truer cross-chain transactions than just moving an asset across a chain. So XPort, we use it in-house for something like XFlows, because if you're doing USDT to USDT on one chain to another, forget the technicals, but it's quite simple. You just throw your USDT into the bridge and it spits USDT out on a different chain. But when you want to do something like a swap, you need some instructions. You need to know what do I want to swap it to. You need to know what is my final destination. You need to know what the receiving address on the final destination is going to be. You need to know a lot of things that you might not think about, like what's the maximum slippage that this user is willing to accept on this swap, and all these sorts of different pieces of information. So this is the type of information that a data transfer protocol like XPort can send across chains, so that all the smart contracts involved in the flow, know what to do.
So I see that Andre is here. Shout out to Andre, who's telling us, I guess you just launched Sol on Cardano today. I didn't know that.
Yes, just a couple hours, I think, before coming on the call. Yeah, you can now bridge Sol to Cardano. Like we've mentioned a few times, on this call and our previous chat, Cardano is a pretty big piece of the Wanchain puzzle. And I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but there's a friendly, sometimes not friendly rivalry between Cardano and ADA, especially on social media. And so we're kind of in a unique position. We bridge to Solana, one of the few bridges that does that, where we bridge to Cardano, basically the only bridge that does that. And so in the last few weeks, we've had this little campaign going where we've brought ADA to Solana, and now the next step is we've brought Sol to ADA. Kind of tried to warm up relations, let's say, between these two major parts of our industry, because not to wax poetic, but interoperability, really, it's about connecting people at the end of the day. So this is all in service of that.
Yeah, as human beings, we tend to be tribalists. Like, I'm on with the Solana crowd, I hate Cardano, and no, I'm with the Cardano crowd, I hate Solana. And it's like, I'm an investor, so I like both Solana and Cardano. I lean towards more towards Cardano because Sol, I just get a little bit scared that their chain has failed a number of times, and it one time impacted me huge as an investor, and I was just like, oh, man. I invested in this pre-sale, and the pre-sale got so much traction when it launched that it collapsed Solana's chain, and just Solana tanked after that. So did the pre-sale, everything. I was just like, man, major chains failing like that hadn't happened. But Solana going through some growing pains. Cardano took a long time to build their foundation strong. and I think Cardano is going to be around for a long time. So sometimes these two, they're like warring factions, but I just kind of laugh as an investor. I think both have some different strengths. Now, talking to Andre, he was sharing with me some case studies and what projects and blockchains are building with it. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so XPort, I think I teased a little bit earlier. It's that we have this new piece of the Wanchain puzzle that really makes it easier to integrate and support smaller and newer chains. So this is XPort. We don't have the same worries that we would have in terms of integrating newer, smaller chains into WANbridge or bridge.wanchain.org, for example. So XFlows, we're just passing data around. We're not dealing directly with assets, moving value. So it's much easier to just deploy this basically everywhere. Any chain listening right now, you have a blockchain, you want to enter the interoperability realm, you come reach out to us and we'll deploy XPort to your chain. And then you can build whatever cross-chain applications you want. And you can even build yourself a token bridge if you want. And so right now, there's quite a few projects that are building already with XPort. We actually had held off the official announcement of XPort while we wanted to make sure that there was real projects building, so that we'd have some proof of concepts to show. So our marketing team over the past few months have been rolling out these type of case studies, really kind of taking deep dives into different projects that are building unique solutions with XPort. Because when you're just dealing with moving data around, the limit to the cross-chain transaction is only limited by the imagination of the developer that's building with it. So one that I think is quite cool is a project called Energy. Some of you who've been around for a long time probably have heard of this name. They've been around for a long time as well, and they're really kind of ultra focused on being a theft-free environment. And this kind of actually, in a counterintuitive way, made it very difficult for them to integrate with a lot of other chains, because they want the ability to freeze funds, basically. So if ever there was a hack or a theft, the chain itself, still in a decentralized governance way, but the chain itself could just freeze the funds. Now, that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. And it's makes it very difficult for a bridge like bridge.wanchain.org, the WANbridge, to integrate that chain, because that would mean that that chain has the ability to freeze assets in the bridge. So that's kind of a non-starter. Can't integrate a chain like that. But then you have XPort. It's just moving data around. They can use it to develop a bridge that suits their needs. And that's exactly what they did. So kind of aligned with their philosophy, this bridge that they built is, it does what you'd expect it to do. You can bring assets from like Ethereum or whatever other chain that they want, bring it into the Energy blockchain, and you can use it in DeFi there. But they have tweaked it such that to exit Energy, there's a 3-day delay. And this is still decentralized. It's built into the logic of the bridge itself, but it's kind of like a unique spin on a bridge that's really only suitable to their environment and their users. And it's not a value judgment. That's just the reality. But because of something like XPort, they're now connected to the larger ecosystem as well. This liquidity in big chains like Ethereum can flow into Energy, and it can go from Energy to the other chains. You just have this 3-day delay. So that's kind of one project that we've already outlined. Pretty novel, solution tweak on the theme, which is cool to see. Another one that we've highlighted already, it's called the DEXA. This one's more focused on enterprise adoption. So enterprise, we don't really talk about it too much in the public sphere. In public sphere, we're talking about, decentralization, permissionlessness. This is all very important. Obviously, it's important to Wanchain. But with the enterprise world, they might have different privacy requirements, or they want a permissioned network. And so they are thinking about interoperability in a different way. It makes it difficult to, again, integrate it into our full public bridge, because there the kind of rules are, if you want to be part of this network, you got to be decentralized, permissionless, or else it poses a risk to the whole system. But with something like XPort, you can make these more unique solutions that accounts for the specific needs of different enterprises. So that's what Adexa has done.
And this was what you read an article on Cointelegraph was on this topic and institutional adoption, right? Because it is what you're saying. A lot of institutions are really looking for a permission system, and a lot of the blockchains, the EVM compatible ones, are all in a permissionless environment, like Cardano, Bitcoin, and a lot of other ones. And integrating these two is more difficult, like you said.
Yeah, and we often talk about, as an industry, mainstream adoption and in interoperability as well. We often say that interoperability is a prerequisite for mainstream adoption. But mainstream adoption sort of means enterprises, big companies coming on chain. It's not only the end users. The end users are the goal, but it's really about industry being on blockchain, and that's kind of what mainstream adoption is, and to a lesser extent, government as well. And so these types of entities, they obviously have different values and different requirements than a pure consumer-based ecosystem that we are right now. And a lot of times, that is a willingness to sacrifice decentralization in systems for security or for control. So that's why you have things like permission systems, permission networks, even totally private networks. And so for mainstream adoption, there has to be some sort of solutions that exist that can handle these types of use cases, while still preserving, the pure decentralized permissionless systems, that are important and are reasons why blockchain exists at all.
Now, I want to ask some questions, if it's okay when we talk about this, because Wanchain recently integrated something that, as an investor, and a lot of investors get excited about, which is burning the token with some of these transactions that happen. And I saw you recently reached a milestone of 400,000 Wanchain burn. How does the burn mechanism work?
Yeah, so this is all part of our unification era push that we've been going after for about a year now, which, we've been building all these years. We have all this really cool tech, but it wasn't always super obvious to the community how it all fits together. And so one way that we managed to very obviously tie all of these together is by linking it all back to the Wanchain. So regarding the burn, basically all cross-chain transactions right now that go through the Wanchain bridge, the collected fees get converted to Wanchain, and then 10% of that is burned. Simple as that. So anything that we're building right now, it's really benefiting every single member of the Wanchain community because it has this direct impact on the circulating supply of Wanchain.
So Wanchain now, or I always say Wan just because way back in 2018, since I first read it, right? So a lot of it I was reading about. So one of my favorite projects, like for the first 3 months, I completely mispronounced it. So if I might have been saying Wanchain like incorrect this whole time for what, like 8 years now. And so I still call it Wan instead of Wan. Wan can be a deflationary token, or essentially is a deflationary token already ever since the burn started months ago. I guess, so what kind of, let me pull up, see how many tokens are 400,000 already burned. Yeah, so it's definitely become a deflationary token now.
Yeah, deflationary token is one of these like loaded terms. People say that Bitcoin is deflationary simply just because it has a max supply. You'll have some that are lost in wallets here and there. And so by that kind of broad definition, WAN has always been deflationary. It's been the same model as Bitcoin. Basically, you have a max cap to the supply and the emissions are getting cut, every year. Same thing with like the Bitcoin, you have the halving. And then with Wanchain, you have a similar mechanism that cuts the emissions every year. But I think nowadays when people talk about deflationary token, they really mean this so-called like quote unquote true deflationary or like ultra deflationary token, which basically is just cold math, being like the tokens that are emitted are less than the tokens that are destroyed. And so by that definition, Wanchain is not yet a deflationary token. So we have this burning mechanism. Right now, there's still ongoing emissions that are paid out to the POS validators on the Wanchain blockchain. These still outnumber the WAN that's burned. But like I mentioned, we have this mechanism. So the POS emissions are going down every year. The Wanchain bridge and all our cross-chain solutions are all operating at all-time highs. So that when it's burned is going to continue to increase. And so it's basically inevitable that at some point, it's going to cross.
Yeah, it makes sense. I guess thanks for that broader definition of what it is to be deflationary. When I saw that that you guys implemented the burn of the tokens, I liked that. there's also a community treasury as well that accumulates their transactions. So right now, there's 1.8 million WAN. So about $200,000 in community treasury. What are those funds going towards, and how are those managed?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, all of our cross-chain fees converted to WAN, and then they're split automatically to a bunch of different pools. One pool is the 10% to the burn. Another pool is to provide ongoing incentives to the bridge nodes, for example. And so another one of those pools is this community treasury. And this is the biggest pool. And so basically, we're still kind of talking openly with the Wanchain community. We published the first kind of proposal of how the community treasury should work. At very kind of broad strokes, the design is meant to be the community WAN holders are going to be the ones who decide what to do with this community treasury. This community treasury continues to grow every day, and then the community decides how to spend it. The specific voting rules and all of that, we're still discussing. We got some feedback based on our first proposal, making tweaks, going to propose, version 0.2, in short order. So if any of you want to join the conversation, I invite you all to come to our Telegram at Wanchain Chat, and that's really where we do most of these conversations.
Okay. I love what you're doing, Tim, and I continue to be impressed with what you're doing, I guess, and pleasantly surprised. So, excited with what you're bringing together. I've been using your network for about, I guess, since the old days when, what was it, WanMask? It was like MetaMask before it was integrated to MetaMask. And then you guys upgraded and integrated directly to MetaMask, which made it easy. But I wouldn't have even imagined back then that down the road, like Uniswap, I can swap between two things. But down the road, I'd be able to have Wanchain swap, and I'd be able to swap not only between different assets, but on different chains without having to think about all the complex things going on behind the scenes. So congrats on the major, like that is some major accomplishments, especially with all this security that's going on behind the scenes. I can't even fathom how your guys made all that happen.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for the kind words. Obviously, we have a very, very talented dev team. And, being such an old project, for those users like you who have been around for a long time, there's something kind of fun about being with a project for so long, because you kind of see the evolution of industry trends all kind of take place in a single project as well. It seems so silly now to think back when we're all using WanMask instead of MetaMask. But of course, MetaMask wasn't the giant that it is now. Back then, there was some technical reasons why that was the case as well, the way kind of addresses were generated and things like that. So you kind of see the evolution of interoperability specifically, but also blockchain as a whole. Kind of, you can read the tea leaves and what's gone on with Wanchain over the past X number of years.
Yeah, I get excited that you've made this future happen, and being here, I feel like the whole way, because I've seen in the crypto space how many businesses started out versus how many make it to the implementation of what they've been talking about. And I feel like a lot of that implementation, still have a lot of bigger plans you're working on, but I feel like that cross chain, being able to swap between things, this communication that was promised back then is delivered, as well as a continued vision of what you're going to do. And I'm excited because I've been around for things like EOS that they raised like $2 billion in funds. And then I got into it and just like gave up, and they never delivered on their promise. And yet Wanchain is like the little engine that could, and kept delivering like all along the way. And all these weird, like, what's hard for those that are just been here in crypto since MetaMask was already around, they didn't get like the difficulty of how things were evolving and having to stay abreast of that, as well as develop in front of it, right? So, okay, everyone's using MetaMask, so let's make a solution that works with MetaMask because everyone's starting to use that. Okay, what are the challenges? And so I feel like Wanchain's been the little engine that could, and it's just kept pushing forward, and now has delivered a product that I love. And a lot of the users, like, this will be their first bull market, and they'll get like massive increases in assets if 2025 is very beneficial. And you'll find that tons of your stuff is across different chains. And then having something like Wanchain's XFlows to be able to bridge things easily, make your life so much more simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with something like the bridge as well, but especially cross-chain swap, which has more functionality or broader functionality. If we support 40 chains, that's users on 40 chains can just directly interact with Wanchain's products. You don't need to go through that whole educational process of getting them onto the Wanchain L1 first. It allows them to, yes, their transactions are transacting on the Wanchain L1, but for their experience, it's much, much simpler.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Tim. We really appreciate your time. And Andre, thank you for jumping on. He's been in the chat helping anyone with any questions they have. Thank you for that. Appreciate you guys very much.
Thanks for having me, and I look forward to our next chat.
All right. Thanks, Tim. For those of you watching, we've got this wrap. Enjoy it. You know what this is all about. See you soon.
To the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit bad before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. Principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Why when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road cause soon will come a bear market. We're learning and growing and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be cracking. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.